Imagine a moment so difficult that even the smallest spark of joy can make all the difference. Now imagine turning that moment into a movement, one that brings comfort and courage to thousands of children. That's exactly what today's guest, Beth Dorsing, has done. After losing her son Andrew at just 6 years old to a congenital heart defect, Beth and her family choose to honor his legacy by creating Andrew's Bravery Box, a nonprofit that has placed over 18,000 toys in hospitals and clinics around the Twin Cities in Minnesota, helping kids find bravery in the face of scary medical procedures. Beth is not only a dedicated wife, mother, and teacher, but she is also a beacon of hope for families navigating the unthinkable. Her faith, compassion, and determination have transformed grief into generosity, and today we get to hear her incredible story.
You're listening to Act to Impact with Brandy DeVries. Through heartfelt stories of resilience, hope, and community, I share my personal experience as a longtime advocate and fundraiser for the national nonprofit Children's Cancer Research Fund. Invite pediatric cancer families to tell their stories and highlight individuals who use their unique gifts to create a positive impact.
Welcome to Act to Impact. I wanted to take the time to thank you for listening and for sharing Act to Impact. You are helping us reach more action takers and difference makers, people just like you. So before we dive into today's episode, let's pause for a moment. Please show me how you take action and click the follow button if you haven't yet. Like this episode and please leave a comment. All right, let's dive into this episode with Beth. Beth, welcome to Act to Impact.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
This is our first time meeting. I have attended one of your fundraisers, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, it's kind of always, it's fun to meet somebody in person for the first time when you've seen them up on a stage and know you have mutual connections and that type of thing, which is how I was introduced to your nonprofit, Andrew's Bravery Box, through our mutual connection and my dear friend, Mary Bull. She invited me to attend your fundraiser that was held in October of 2024, and it really made an impact on me. I left that night, and as I was just kind of telling you before we were hit record, was that I hadn't even started Act to Impact yet officially. And I looked to Mary and I said, when I get Act to Impact off the ground, I want Beth to come on. Like, more people need to hear her story. So yes, thank you so much for being here. And you know Mary through a volunteer organization, correct?
Yeah, gosh, it's been like 20 years. It's amazing how you look back and all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, it goes from, yeah, just a couple years ago to, 20 years ago now. But yeah, Mary and I and my husband and a lot of our common friends volunteered for a year-long ministry based out of St. Paul called Youth Encounter. And yeah, we met and she was on a team and a little after my volunteer experience, and she actually stayed at my house. So yeah, that's kind of when our relationship started. And once you're part of that group, it's kind of a family. And so we've been able to stay in touch for the last 20 or so years. So it's kind of nice.
That's amazing. It's so special to have connections like that with
Mhm.
organizations that you have both made an impact with, and now you're continuing something new and very
Yeah.
close to your heart, very personal
Yes.
with Andrew's Bravery Box. And like I said, I felt that was a very special event to be at. It was unique in the sense that there were kids playing. There was music playing. There were people laughing. There were stuffed bears being put together. And there was just so much real energy and enthusiasm in that room for your nonprofit, which was at Surly Brewing. Really just wanted more people to hear about your organization and your son, Andrew, and how you're honoring his memory and helping other families in similar situations. So, of course, we want to hear about your nonprofit and Andrew, but let's get to know you a little bit more first. So, if you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Well, I am not originally from Minnesota. I grew up on the East Coast, in Maryland. And in the year 2000, that's when, or actually the year 1999, back in the 1900s, is when I volunteered for that year-long ministry, and it turned into two. And I met my husband doing that team setting. And then after we both kind of graduated, he had a job. We found ourselves in Minnesota, and I went to school to be a teacher, and so for the last 19 years, I've been a math teacher at Blaine High School, and I think I'll be there until I don't know until I die because I love it. I love my students and just the conversations we get to have. My husband and I were both musicians. The ministry that we were a part of was music centered, and so music plays a pretty big part of our lives, which is why, like you said, at the event, we had live music that we were a part of, actually. So that's one of that's our hobby. That's our kind of our outside passion, is just being creative and music. We're in a band and we perform at youth events, and so we have a lot of hats that we wear in terms of our personal lives and our passions and the things we love, and that's kind of spilled over into what we do with Andrew's Bravery Box. So yeah, that's where I am.
Well, we can't talk about Andrew's Bravery Box without talking about Andrew first. So,
Yeah.
would you mind sharing with everyone the story, your son? Who's Andrew, and how did Andrew's Bravery Box come about? What is the story with Andrew and your family?
Yeah. So Andrew was born in December of 2012. And truth be told, he was an unexpected blessing for my husband and I. We had two boys already. And so when we found out Andrew was coming along, it took us by surprise. But when he showed up, we were just overjoyed. And so it took me about 10 seconds after realizing that he was on the way that we were both very excited to have number three. And when he was born, everything throughout the pregnancy went fine. There wasn't anything out of the ordinary. And the day he was born was fine, nothing out of the ordinary. But on day two, the pediatrician who, it's pretty standard procedure to come in, listen to a newborn's heart and do, all the checkup things. The pediatrician found an abnormal heartbeat, and she heard some abnormal sounds. And when they looked a little closer, they realized that he had a condition called aortic stenosis, which means the aorta, the aortic valve, is supposed to be kind of, when you look at the valve head on, it's supposed to look like a Mercedes Benz kind of symbol and have three little triangular leaflets that open and close as the heart beats. But his had barely an opening there. And so stenosis just means it's not opening, and it's like not allowing blood to flow. And as a newborn, once that placenta is detached, the biology is like you have these extra little vessels and they start to kind of close off once the baby's born. And so as those were closing off, his heart was not getting enough blood passing through it. And so it was kind of this big whirlwind experience. He was born at Mercy in Coon Rapids. And so he was whisked away by ambulance to Children's Hospital. And my doctor was so wonderful. She discharged me from Mercy, and I was able to get in a car and go and get admitted to Abbott, which is connected to Children's. And so it was a huge shock to us to find out that he had this heart condition. And immediately our connection with Children's was, you never want to be connected in this way, right? But the people that we were connected with were just absolutely wonderful. I wholeheartedly believe to this day, and will believe for the rest of my life, that Children's Hospital in Minnesota and Minneapolis is the best place to be if you have a kid who needs care. Like, our experience there was amazing. And so he had his first procedure when he was 2 days old. And then for about the next 2 years or so, we just monitored, and he ended up, the procedure doesn't fix it. It just allows blood to flow. And so he had to have another open heart surgery when he was around 2 years old. And there they kind of moved some parts around. It's called a Roscono procedure. And basically they moved his pulmonary valve and replaced his aortic valve. And then he had a stent and a prosthetic valve in the other location. And so we monitored that. He had to go in for a few more little procedures to kind of open the valve as he grew. And then along the way, he ended up needing another open heart surgery and another open heart surgery just to kind of open things up. He had some scar tissue that developed, and just kind of over time, he ended up having about 7 procedures in his 6.5 years. And so we spent a lot of time in the hospital, and he developed a lot of phobias and fears. Like, for example, he hated having band-aids ripped off. There was some nurse or doctor, bless their heart, I mean, they were just doing their job, and they didn't know when they ripped that band-aid off, it hurt him. And from that point forward, he was scared. It could have been me, who knows? Maybe Jeremy or I ripped his band-aid off, I don't know, but he developed that phobia. He developed a phobia around IVs, like he hated having an IV in his arm because it was uncomfortable and it can be a little bit painful. And so he had all these like fears and phobias. And it was during his last hospital stay that we kind of tried something a little bit new, and that's kind of what led to Andrew's Bravery Box. And I'll share a little bit about that in just a bit, but just to share kind of a couple other things about who Andrew was. He was awesome. He was a very tenacious little boy. He loved playing Little League. I have lots of pictures of T-ball. I coached one of his T-ball teams, and that was one of the most amazing things I ever did. And yeah, and he got to go to kindergarten, and he loved going to school. He went to preschool, and he did a lot of things. We tried to make sure that he had the most normal time growing up as a kid, but he was amazing, and he was spunky, and he he had his opinions. All three of my boys are very opinionated, strong-willed, but he was by far the most tenacious. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about him and that I don't miss him, and I don't wonder who he would be today. So
He made a profound impact on your family and probably friends and his brothers,
yeah,
and you're continuing that legacy.
for sure.
Man, it sounds like to me like he made the most of his time while
He did.
he was here with you guys. He made sure that you guys weren't going to forget him. So,
Not a chance, not a
uh,
chance. He was a
well,
special little guy. So
and it sounds like it because all the people that are supporting Andrew's Bravery Box at your fundraisers, I mean, they knew what a special boy he was. Otherwise, and you and and your husband Jeremy, otherwise they wouldn't be there for you guys and to remember Andrew that way. So
yeah,
let's talk a little bit more about that Bravery Box and when there were some of those more traumatic, difficult times for Andrew in the hospital, and it came to ripping off those Band-Aids or needing the IVs. Tell us about some of the toys that, like how the box started or how you guys started giving him the toys. Do you remember what the first one was?
I do. Yeah. So our last hospital stay was kind of a longer one, and it was in the summer. And he, as a 6.5-year-old, he knows what's coming. He doesn't like IVs. He doesn't like Band-Aids. And so we just were going round and around. How can we convince him? Because kids don't understand that they need things to happen. They just know that it hurts or that it's uncomfortable. And so we came up with a little plan. And my husband, when you have a kid in the hospital, you trade off sleeping at the hospital. And so we were taking turns spending the night. And so when my husband was at home with the other two boys, he took Nathan and Jesse, Andrew's brothers, out to Target, and he let them pick out some small toys. And the toys that they picked out, there were a lot of little Matchbox cars, but in particular, the ones that were the favorite right off the bat were these little like Matchbox Mario Kart little figures. So it's like, Mario on his little Mario Kart, or Luigi, or, Yoshi riding his little motorcycle. So they found these at Target and put them in the bag. And we brought the bag in and we said, Andrew, if you let the nurse flush your IV, if you can let the nurse flush your IV, you can pick a toy from the Bravery bag. That's what we called it at first. And it was literally just a paper Target bag. And the first time it took a little bit longer, but then once he picked that toy, the next time came around where something needed to happen, we said, Andrew, you can pick a toy from the Bravery bag. And before we knew it, like that night, he was like, I, can the nurse come flush my IV, please, so that I can get another toy? So literally within hours, we saw the transformation of just how motivated he was by the toys.
Mhm.
Because, that's what kids need. They're not motivated by the whys of these difficult things. They're motivated by the toy that they're going to get if they cooperate and do what needs to be done. So
Mhm.
that was the inspiration for kind of starting the Bravery Box. And, as far as what Andrew loved, he loved those little Matchbox cars and he loved Legos. So Legos, he loved Legos. Oh my gosh. Playing with those Legos, little minifigs, he loved to like mix and match them. It's pretty awesome. And then the other favorite were we had these little mini Nerf guns and I would hang a little target on the wall and like shoot Nerf guns at the wall and those were, I think those were his top tier toys.
How long from the time that Andrew passed to when you really took this idea and said, we need to go with this and make this a reality? How
Yeah.
much time had passed between that?
So Andrew passed away July 8th. The document, I think, might say July 9th, but it was July 8th in my heart. But we started Andrew's Bravery Box mid-September of that same year. So it wasn't very long. We have such an amazing community and family of friends that got together and started a GoFundMe for us. And that GoFundMe, I think that GoFundMe raised like $12,000, which was incredible. And so, my husband and I, we we don't like to sit and wallow. There's grief, and it's absolutely okay to grieve. And we still do our fair share of grieving. But we decided with that GoFundMe money, after we covered all of the expenses that go along with post-death funerals and things like that,
Mhm.
we said we don't know what to do with this money, and we knew we wanted to make something positive out of this. And so we remembered the bravery bag, and we remembered working with child life. We remembered, just seeing the how Andrew responded to having those little toys that were in there, and knowing that like not every family is going to have that ability to provide that for their kids. We decided to use a lot of that GoFundMe to be the seed money to start Andrew's Bravery Box. And so we took that, and we, by September, we had established the nonprofit. We were registered, and I think, within a month, we were ready to accept donations for our 501(c)(3). So yeah, not long at all.
That just shows that when you have an idea and you make a decision, we're gonna put this into action, that it
Yeah,
it can happen. Like, if you have that drive and that willingness, it's almost like maybe you felt this, maybe you didn't, but did things just all of a sudden, like, come together? Did you feel like, "This is coming together, I can't imagine" never imagined how quickly maybe it
yeah,
would have come together?
yeah. It's incredible. And I've always kind of had this mindset of like, you know what? Other people have done this. Why can't I do this? I'm no different than other people. And it's true. And, the difference might be, means or, yeah, what you have in front of you, but there's no reason, there's nothing standing in your way of accomplishing what you want to accomplish except for your own like reservations and worries and fears and anxieties. And so if you can kind of push past that and just take those first steps, you're going to run into roadblocks, but if you have that solutions oriented kind of mindset of, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'll find a way. There's got to be a way. Other people have done it. I can do it too. So that's kind of the mindset. I think if you're going to move forward with your own idea of something, that's definitely where you want to, you know, have your mind be.
When you and Jeremy decided to make this happen, did you pull in some friends of yours in the community to get the nonprofit going, request more donations during that process?
So every nonprofit needs to have a board. And so we have an amazing board, and it consists of people who run nonprofits, who are super outgoing. So we've got Kelly, who ran a nonprofit in the Twin Cities for a number of years. She's awesome and has a lot of knowledge and connections and wisdom in that area. We've got Jennifer, who will make all of the phone calls that I don't want to make and ask for things that you know, that's one of my big fears that I've had to overcome is just asking for things because I've always had the mindset of I can do it, I can do it. And I've learned through this process that like you need to ask people for help and you need to ask people for things. And not only that, but they want to help you. And so it's been eye-opening over the last 5 years and I've gotten far more comfortable just asking for help And it's amazing when you just explain your mission and you just say, "Will you help me with this? Can you help me? Is there anything you can give?" The response you're going to get is incredible. And so Jennifer is not afraid to ask for help. Lynn is she and her husband were Andrew's godparents, and she's run her own nonprofit. And so she brings a lot of wealth of knowledge to the table. And then my husband and I are the other board members. And so we have just an amazing community who have come together, who have offered things. We got connected with Indeed Brewery through a friend of ours. His name is Matt, and he works at Indeed. And so he put our name in for their Indeed We Can. And so that really helped, because when you have an event that you can invite people to and share about your mission, it opened doors. And without those years at Indeed Brewery and without their generosity, that was a huge piece of helping us out. And over the years, we've maintained partnerships, and we have a lot of friends connected at churches. And so we have a church that we're partnering with. We are their missions partner this year. It's Discover Church. But they're amazing, and they're so generous, and so they're partnering with us this year as their missions kind of partner. And yeah, it's been amazing just seeing the connections that we've made throughout our life, and then the new connections that we're making because of Andrew's Bravery Box. It's just been amazing. And I think if you are doing something good and you're willing to go out and ask, like, good things are going to happen, and it's just going to kind of snowball into this amazing thing that you never thought could even be possible.
Well, you kind of alluded to some of the things you like and don't like doing with running a nonprofit, and it requires that mix of the heart of service and strategy. And it sounds like you have some good people in place that are helping you execute on that strategy. But specifically, what gifts or skills did you find yourself relying on most as you built the nonprofit? And then was there any new skills that you really had to tap into and develop along the way?
Yeah, I think I've always been a very organized person in terms of like knowing what needs to be done. I'm very type A, and so that has really boded well. And I think that I dream really big, which sometimes is really good. Sometimes it kind of backfires, but I love being creative. And so I think just having a background with like creativity and seeing events unfold through the other, various facets of my life, I think that just creativity and that organizational skills behind the scenes, I think that has really paid off, because that helped me figure out, okay, what needs to be filed, what needs to be done, because there are a lot of boxes you need to check when you're starting a nonprofit in terms of like registering with the IRS, registering with the state, how do you become tax exempt, and all those things. And so being more organized, I think, behind the scenes has really helped with putting things together. And I think as far as things that I've had to work on is delegation. I've always, like I said, I've been the person who just wants to take it over and do all the things. And I love doing all the things. And in my mind, I just get this list and I just keep going. And I like to think sometimes that I feel like a shark, because I'm like, if you're a shark, you just have to keep swimming, because if you don't stop, or if you do stop, that's I don't know. I don't know if it's true, but this is what I always heard, that if a shark stops, then it just kind of sinks to the bottom and dies. I don't know. But sometimes I feel that way. Like I just have to keep swimming, and I have to keep going, and I have to carry everything. And I think over the last few years, I've learned that I have a lot of really amazing people, and they are very capable, and I just need to put my trust in the people around me. And I've seen it pay off, clearly. And so I think delegation is definitely something I've grown in asking for help, and then getting that help, which has been amazing. So yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of those people that you've kind of called upon and delegated to, how do you go about rallying those types of people, whether it's, yeah, your family or friends or the broader community, to help get involved and encourage them and make that ask to get them involved to help Andrew's Bravery Box grow into where it is today?
Yeah, I think we are very lucky because we have a very simple mission, and that's to reward bravery. And we do that by providing those toys to kids in the hospital who need them as motivation to face their difficult treatments. And so when you have a simple mission, I feel like sometimes it's too easy to share that and just say, "Hey, we want to help sick kids." And I mean, the response we get is pretty incredible. And so I think when you kind of share that mission. And sometimes you can reframe it too. We talk about rewarding bravery. I had a friend at the event in October, and he said, you guys, rewarding bravery is really great. But when you talk about like empowering people, you guys are really doing more than rewarding bravery. He said, you guys are giving joy. And I thought about that and I said, you know what? That's absolutely right, because we are trying to bring a little bit of joy into a situation that would otherwise be kind of dark and uncomfortable and no fun. And so finding ways to like just communicate effectively, what is the impact that their service, their dollars, their donations, their contributions are having on kids, and bringing joy into a dark situation. I mean, that right there, that sums it up. Is what more do you need to want to be a part of that? And yeah, we're just really lucky to have an easy mission that's just easy to be a part of. And so the response has been incredible. And I think it also helps that, Jeremy and I, throughout our lives, we've done so many things, and we are so lucky to have a wide, extensive network of people that we've called upon, whether it's our ministry from 20 years ago, our church family that we're a part of, our work families have rallied around us, and it's been incredible. I look back, and even thinking about when we had Andrew's celebration of life, we had to find a room big enough because our family is so wonderful and so big, and I mean, it was amazing to see the turnout, and we knew, even after that, that we were going to have the support, and we just feel so lucky and so blessed.
So now that you have brought joy to kids by donating 18,000 toys
Hmm.
across multiple hospitals and clinics in the Twin Cities, are there any additional stories that you can share from families that have
Yeah.
received these toys that reaffirm why your mission is so important?
Yeah, one of the hardest things about what we do is hearing from the families that we impact. Because of patient confidentiality, it's so tricky to try to get, photos and stories and things like that. And so we when we do get those little family nuggets, it's like gold, because we know for every one that we hear, 18,000 toys, like that's 18,000 visits to the Bravery Box. That's 18,000 procedures made easier. And so we know that there's 18,000 stories out there that we haven't heard. And so we're lucky, we have wonderful child life staff at our locations. And every time we drop off, we say, hey, if you can get, we'd love to hear impact stories. And so we've gotten a few of them over the years. We have a story of there's a little boy who had his third open heart surgery, and his mom said, our walks down the hall after surgery were the hardest, and the Bravery Box was his main motivation. We have another parent who talks about how the promise of the prize is what got them through, facing every poke, every tube, every scary procedure. And then I think the most impactful stories, though, have been our actual friends who have had I don't know, the unfortunate experience of having to go to children's for whatever reason. And so I've had a couple of coworkers who have been to children's and and been able to use the Bravery Box, and it's been awesome to hear their stories. One of my very close coworkers had to take her son in because he was sick and they couldn't figure it out. And so they found themselves at Children's. And so she said that it helped him tremendously in terms of being scared. And I have another friend whose daughter was in for an appendectomy at Children's. And so she loved picking things out of the Bravery Box to kind of help her post surgery. And then I think most recently, though, uh, I have a coworker whose nephew has a very, serious epileptic condition where he has seizures all the time. Hearing the story over the last, oh gosh, it's been like a year or two I can't remember when they first got their diagnosis, but it has been an awful, awful journey for that family in terms of like having to rearrange their work schedule to care for their son who, all of a sudden has all these seizures, and working at Children's to try to like figure out what's going on. And so he's in and out of the hospital And he recently just had a surgery to try to correct this and try to like reduce the seizures. And it was so rewarding to me to be able to personally give him something from Andrew's Bravery Box after surgery. And so just to see his family sent a little video, and it was a remote control car. So, but just to see the smile on his face and to see the family coming together and having just this moment of joy, in the midst of the last several years of trying to navigate this difficult thing. It's an amazing blessing to be able to bring that to families like theirs.
I'm sure it brings up a lot of emotions too for you when you read these stories or you see the video of him with his remote control car. So, what toys do you think Andrew will want to make sure are included in these boxes to bring
Yeah.
joy to these kids?
Yeah. Well, I would say Legos would be the number one. Just the little bags of Legos, like nothing big.
Yeah.
I'd say Legos, the Nerf guns, and the Matchbox cars. Those were his favorites. But, when toys arrive, whether they're from a toy drive or a donation from our Amazon wish list, my husband and I get to open every package and we get to put our hands on every toy as we sort it. And then again, as we prep it to go to the hospital, we package every toy. And so we get to see everything that comes through. And there have been just some amazing things. There have been some Harry Potter things. Andrew loved Harry Potter, and so there's some really cute Harry Potter things that have come through. He also loved Pokemon. I have a memory of sitting in the hospital and reading through It's a Pokemon handbook. I will say, as his mom, I hated it. And I thought it was the dumbest thing ever, but he loved going through that and like looking at each Pokemon and seeing what it turned into. And yeah, so that's a treasured memory. So Pokemon things are really fun. And so we serve a diverse population. And so those are things that Andrew would love. But I think in our Bravery Box, anything that any child, we like to say anything in the children in your life would enjoy, that's an amazing addition to the Bravery Box.
Yeah, when I came to the fundraiser in October, I brought some monster trucks, like the toy
Nice.
monster trucks, because that is what my son was interested in at that time. So that's a really
Yep.
good advice for people. Like, think about what your kids like in the moment right now and make that
Yeah.
as your donation. So, yeah, good advice. Okay, so for those who are listening who want to take action, but they might not know where to start, Beth, what advice would you give them into turning their idea or personal experience into a meaningful way to serve people?
Yeah. Well, my first advice is to just go for it. Don't let anything hold you back. Just put one foot in front of the other and just start taking steps. And then beyond that, find somebody to reach out to. I mean, like I've had a number of people who wanted to start nonprofits reach out to me. And I am very happy to give advice and point people in the right direction. There are a lot of really great resources online. I feel like I I just started Googling and I found like the nonprofit. There's a web page that's specifically intended to help people start a nonprofit in Minnesota anyway, because I think each state might have different things that you need to register, but it'll walk you through, and that website was incredibly helpful. I can't remember what the website is, but I feel like if you Google nonprofit or start a nonprofit in Minnesota, that web page will pop up. Walked me through everything I needed to do in terms of like the paperworks and the filings and things like that. And then, I guess the bigger piece of advice is don't be afraid to ask for help. Find the people around you who are going to support you and who are going to have that same passion. And you know what? Just do it together and ask for support because, like I said, it's going to amaze you the response you're going to get when you want to do something good to help others. There are so many people who want to just get on board with that.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, great advice. Well, Beth, thank you so much for being here today
Yeah.
and sharing Andrew's story and helping us get to know who he was and the impact he made on people while he was here and how you're continuing to honor him and bring joy to 18,000 plus kids. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's
So,
incredible.
where can people learn more about Andrew's Bravery Box, how they can donate, your Amazon wish list, and or get involved with your nonprofit?
You can start by going to our website, www.andrewsbraverybox.org, and you'll find links to all kinds of information, how to donate, how to host a toy drive. We've got an Amazon wish list, which is awesome because you just click it and it goes straight to our door. You don't even have to think about it. You just pick out whatever favorite toy you want. So there's lots of things on there that you can do to help us keep our mission going.
Amazing. I'll be sure to link that information in the show notes. Beth, thanks again for being here. Just feel so blessed to have you on here to share the story of Andrew's Bravery Box.
Well, I'm so grateful that you had me join you today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Act to Impact with Brandy DeVries. If this show ignited your fire and inspired you to take action to make an impact, please share this episode with a friend, leave a 5-star review, or write a review to let others know how the show impacted you. I can't wait to see the action you are taking to make an impact, and I'd love for you to share that with our community. Go ahead and tag me on social media as you are out making an impact in the world. Do you have a story to share and want to be a guest on Act to Impact? I'd love to connect with you.